Welcome to the Inside Pitch. I'm Christopher Lockhart.
I'm Ramesh.
That is Ramesh. And this is our live broadcast. This is part of our monthly series that we do on our Facebook group called the Inside Pitch, where screenwriters, filmmakers, creatives meet to ask and answer questions and exchange ideas and information on the craft and business of movie making. And today, we are going to discuss the world of television.
Yes.
Yes, with our lovely, smart, fun, because we had a lot of fun with her in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
She would join me at those lovely buffet. By the way, that place had I really had a very good buffet breakfast, I have to say. All right, but anyway, all right, so before we introduce Jill, Ramesh, you wanted to mention the fact that we have some Tracking B winners.
Yes,
well, maybe you didn't want to mention it, but I want you to mention it, so go ahead.
We have five of the top 8 of the Tracking B picks. It's a very tough contest, and they pick something, I think it's 3 finalists and 5 honorable mentions, and of the top 8, 5 of them are Inside Pitch members. There's Arun Narayanan, Billy Joe Mason, Isabella Bodnar, Frank Tremblay, and Gregory Lane.
Excellent. Congrats, guys. I'm not a fan of screenwriting contests, generally speaking. Right. They're basically, they exist to separate the writer from their money, and they do not move the needle at all. There are a few. The studio fellowships are terrific. Obviously, the Nickel Fellowship can be great. We will be posting our interview with one of the 5 2021 Nickel winners, Byron Hamill. We interviewed him last month. Right. That's still floating somewhere on the page, but we will park it on the YouTube Facebook group soon. But Tracking B is a good contest if you have a sort of a commercial script. It's really not a contest for some kind of, small, precious, character-driven piece. It's not really what they do. But they have discovered projects like Extant. That was the Halle Berry, Steven Spielberg show, was discovered through that contest. Right. There have been quite a few films that have been made from that contest. And I know the guy that runs the contest very well, so I trust him. I know that he's very sincere in what he does. And he's also found scripts through the contest of which he has set up around town. So it's a good contest. And I know that their TV contest, their pilot contest, the last day to enter is tomorrow. So if you have a pilot, you can go check it out. It's kind of expensive to enter, and the cash prize is nothing. You don't really get a prize. The prize is that the contest will try to set you up with a manager. And I think if you're one of the winners, that they're pretty successful in doing that.
One of our members was a winner last year. Jenna Crosgrove won the whole thing last year.
Right. Maybe we need to interview her. But at any rate, so Ramesh started a thread about it, so we can all chime in there. But let's move on from that. Welcome, everybody. Let me just say hello to some people, so it seems like I care. Lou, Phil, who else is here? Let me see. Annie, thank you for posting that link. Annie's been working very hard. I haven't heard from her recently, but I know that she's doing good work. And she says that we look handsome and that we're entertaining. So what else can we say? Mark Allen is here. As you know, I can't really see anybody's names here. Right. And I'm sure that people are still trying to find this feed. So without further ado, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Ramesh, why don't you introduce today's special guest?
Our special guest today is Jill Blotevogel, who is co-executive producer and writer on Shining Vale, a new horror comedy series starring Courtney Cox, Oscar winner Mira Sorvino, Oscar nominee Greg Kinnear, and Sherilyn Fenn, and it's premiering Sunday, March 6th on Starz.
That's a week from today.
Yes, exactly. She has been working on several high-profile and TV and film projects in Hollywood for over the last 2 decades. She made a name for herself in drama, anthology, and genre TV. She got her first break writing for the romantic drama series To Have and to Hold for CBS, as well as writing numerous TV movies, including Personally Yours, Love is a Four-Letter Word, and Ira Johansson's The Killing Game. Her early dramatic series writing credits include Crossing Jordan, The Twilight Zone, Stephen King's The Dead Zone, LAX, and Invasion. She wrote the teleplay for the hit sci-fi miniseries Tin Man, and she worked as a co-producer for the CBS series Moonlight, wrote the acclaimed Hallmark Hall of Fame movie The Russell Girl, produced the thriller series Harper's Island, and co-executive produced Eureka. Blotevogel also developed, wrote, executive produced, and served as co-showrunner for the horror TV series Scream, which was a reimagining of Wes Craven's hit film franchise and was produced by Degas Studios and the Weinstein Company and aired for 3 seasons on MTV. In the espionage genre, she served as co-executive producer on Amazon's critical hit Patriot and Epic's prestige drama Berlin Station. In a modern feminist take on the cop show, she wrote and co-executive produced Tommy, starring Edie Falco for Amblin Television and CBS. She has developed projects with Drew Barrymore and horror legend John Carpenter. With Barrymore, she created an all-female written and directed horror series called The Black Rose Anthology for the CW. And with John and Sandy Carpenter, she adapted a pilot based on Simon R. Green's best-selling horror noir book series, The Night Side, for John Carpenter to direct. Jill, welcome.
Thank you. Wow.
What a show off.
Trip to memory lane.
What a show off. Wow. Wow. All right. So, man, that's an awful lot to cover and not a whole lot of time. But Jill, welcome to the Inside Pitch. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to meet our group members. And everybody is very happy to see you. People are saying hello. Jill has amazing credits. Love the horror. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Just lots of love for you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, you know, I haven't seen you since Pittsburgh.
Yeah, was that like 5 years ago? Something
like 1,000 years ago, right, Ramesh?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah, 5-6 years ago.
And I was telling Jill that her hair is longer. Okay. It's it's not like it. It's very. Can I say that it's youthful? Am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
That's a word.
Okay. Anyway. Ramesh.
Yeah.
How are you? Are you okay there?
Yeah, I'm hanging in.
You know, Jill, Ramesh will peck away at his computer a lot. I do want to send out a shout to 2 individuals. One is Steve Enlow, of course, our co-administrator, and the other is Hobbs, Ramesh's cat, who went on to the Pearly Litter Box last month. He was an active member of these broadcasts because he made more noise than Ramesh did, howling and stepping on the keyboard and passing through. So we will definitely miss Hobbs.
I know. My house is very quiet now.
I know. Well,
horribly quiet.
All right. Well, he's here in spirit.
He's yelling in your heart.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that I just crashed this entire webcast,
bring us down.
Right. You know, Jill, why don't we just start a little bit with your origin story, sort of how you got interested in writing and then how you crossed over into TV.
Sure. I am from a small town in Southern Illinois of about 5,000 people. No one there writes or produces television, which is not surprising. My dad worked in a steel mill and my mom ran a restaurant. So there's certainly none of that in my roots. But growing up, I read books voraciously and watched TV and movies voraciously. And had no idea who did that, like created that stuff or how they did it. But when I graduated from college, where I was going to be a chemical engineer and quickly realized that would suck, I switched to English and cinema studies at the University of Illinois in Champaign. And when I graduated, I just did that thing. I packed my suitcases and flew to Los Angeles. I'd never visited. I didn't know anyone here. And I just pounded the pavement and knocked on doors till I got into one. And I was working in development and reading scripts for people and trying to, you know, get to know as many people as I could. Learned how to write scripts by reading, you know, 30 of them a week as part of my job, but then also taking a bunch home. And took like one UCLA screenwriting class. And then I just wrote a script that was very close to my heart. I think Ordinary People was the movie that just blew my mind, because it was all about a family and a story that is told so much in, you know, looks and communication, nonverbal communication. So for that to be my screenwriting inspiration is kind of bizarre, but it's also one of the best, you know, scripts ever written. So my goal was to write something as good as Ordinary People. And so I wrote a story that was kind of based on some stuff that had happened to me. And that became my calling card. It was called The Russell Girl. And it was just a drama, just a family drama. And that got me into a lot of doors, and it got me a lot of jobs. So I started out writing TV movies, which was a thing in the 90s that you could do. And then that eventually led to like a couple of them getting made, but also just writing a bunch. And it got me my first TV job on Crossing Jordan, which was, you know, kind of a standard female lead, nice, like TV procedural. But what I love about Crossing Jordan, it's like you meet all these people, and two of the unknown actors who were on Crossing Jordan that first season were Mahershala Ali and Catherine Hahn. And they were both, you know, like fresh out of, I think Catherine Hahn was fresh out of school. And I'm not sure how much Mahershala had done before that, but just, they were like the orderly, you know, number 6 and 7 on the call sheet. And so you never know in this town who is going to be what or where you're going to go from there. And then I kept getting jobs, and I've done a lot of genre stuff, as you know, and I love everything. I love drama. I love genre. I love espionage. I always say the only thing I can't write is a Wallace Beery wrestling picture because I don't like sports. So I probably couldn't do your baseball movie much good. But pretty much everything else I love to dig into research-wise and embrace it.
Okay, so you came out here. You didn't know anybody. Somehow you managed to get a job in the business. Mm-hmm. So you got a job in the business. Were you an assistant? What?
Yeah. Well, I should clarify. I had worked for an insane film producer in Champaign who said he had connections out here, and he was trying to get a movie made on campus, but he was clinically insane. But the good thing is, while I was working for him in college, he was paying me like LA wages. And so I was saving up some good money to be able to come out here. But his former assistant, I must say, had gone to work at CAA. And so when I got here, she was able to set up an interview for me. And my first interview was with Richard Lovett.
Wow.
To be his assistant. And I sat down in my best Forenza houndstooth checked, you know, blazer and my little red skirt. It was very 90s. And he talked to me for 5 minutes, and he said, "Wait, do you want to be an agent?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Then why would you want to do this job?" I'm like, "I guess I don't." And I walked out. So wow. I didn't go the agent route. But I got a job in development. Fairly quickly. I mean, I feel like it's such a different age. I kind of hate when people ask me for advice. I mean, if you ask a writer or a producer or a director what their path was, you're going to, you know, you ask 100, you'll get 100 different answers.
That's right. That's right. But still, I think in many ways, it's inspiring because you came out at a time probably when the internet wasn't booming, I would assume. Yeah. And you knew one person out here, but yet that one person helped you to connect.
Yeah.
And so it speaks to the whole idea of networking and how important networking is, even if it's one person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One person.
It was really just a matter of, you know, you get your resume out there, you get yourself in front of people. obviously COVID doesn't help that, and Zoom doesn't help that. But I think when you bring your energy and your excitement about things, even to a job, bringing someone coffee, but if that person you're bringing coffee is someone who's doing exactly what you want to do, and the thing you're doing in your spare time is, here, can you read the script and tell me what you think? Or, you know, just things that are related to the business. When I came out here, I did not know what a feature script looked like. And so, like I said, I just soaked them up, just like read them voraciously, like, you know, popcorn at a good movie. It was just, it was so great. And I think as inspiring as the good scripts were, the bad ones were even more inspiring because I knew I could do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, and then, and so what was the moment when you crossed over, how did you get that first job? You said it was on Crossing Jordan? Yeah.
Well, I think it was probably when I was doing TV movies, and it was, it's funny. I was dating someone who had sold some big feature scripts. You know, that was the time when an unknown could sell a big hot feature script for $1 million or $3 million. And so that was, of course, the brass ring that every writer that I knew was going for. And the script I had written, I knew wasn't that kind of script, but I also knew that it was a great sample. And the guy that I was dating, this is terrible, this is not something you can always do. He gave it to his agent, who gave it to a junior agent at APA. And that junior agent read it, and he's like, I can get you a job writing a TV movie. And he went out and sent it to like 4 people, and I got 4 interviews, and I got a job writing a TV movie off of that sample I'd written. And so, yes, that is a connection that you can't always count on having. That's the intangible that I couldn't create.
But yet, again, it speaks to also your preparation, right?
Yeah,
because
I
if
had
you
the
didn't
script
have the
ready to
script,
go.
right? Yeah, and it was a good script, and it inspired this agent. And if you didn't have that, the connection would be useless. So it really is this. It is really important to network, but you also have to be writing, and you have to be making the work good work.
Mm-hmm.
So no, you know, it's like, to me, these are the real stories. You know, like, this is what I love. So this is how people get into this business.
Yeah, no,
this is it. And so so then you were writing TV movies, and then you segued from that into episodic TV. Is that something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I did. TV movies were great, but as with anything, as with a lot of feature writers, if you're writing, you write a bunch of projects and hope that 1 out of 10 gets made. You know, that's sometimes the situation that you're in. And that's kind of what was happening with TV movies. I was writing a lot, I was developing a lot, and a couple got made. And so I was really drawn to the instant gratification of making a TV show. It has been picked up. It will be produced. You don't have to sit there and wonder if all this, you know, blood, sweat, and tears you're putting into it is just going to sit in a page in someone's drawer. And so Crossing Jordan was a great entree into that. Yeah, that was my agent, you know, just taking some of my work and sending it out. And I got, you know, came as an entry-level staff writer and was in a room with, you know, 10 people. The story editor, you know, who was the next level up, was Damon Lindelof. And so it was just, you know, we were just like, it was Tim Kring was running it, and a couple of upper level writers who, you know, it's such a great sort of sink or swim experience to be thrown into a writer's room. And I think entry-level writers come from a lot of different places. You know, some of them have been writer's assistants, so they've sat in these rooms before, but haven't really had a voice at the table. Some of them are assistants to the showrunners. And so they have a different sort of angle in on things. I had come from writing TV movies where I was always the only writer. So when they would ask a question, I would answer, you know, when I'm sitting around a big table talking to people. And so to come in as the staff writer, I'm expecting that somebody says something and I'm supposed to answer. And somebody was like, no, you don't always have to answer. In fact, you probably should hang back a bit. So it's always a learning experience. And you know, people funnel into the writer's room from a lot of different points of view and a lot of different levels of inclusion and sort of participation. So it's a trial by fire to some degree.
And now you have run shows. I'm assuming that you have had to interview and hire writers for shows.
Yes.
So putting on that cap, what is your process? What do you look for in a writer to come and join your staff?
Well, usually, you know, you read a stack of samples for every level of writer that you need. And, you know, you're looking for one sort of just, you know how to write, you know how to structure, you get how it works. When you're putting a staff together, you're doing a jigsaw puzzle. You know, you're bringing a lot of disparate pieces. And depending on the kind of story you want to tell, it might help to have someone who used to be a lawyer, someone who's got 8 kids or 4 kids or whatever, a kid, someone who has worked, you know, as a therapist or a psychologist. I mean, people from different parts of the country. You don't just want, you know, 4 people from New York or 3 people from Los Angeles. I always feel like as many points of view you can get, the better served your stories will be. You know, sometimes people will hire people they've worked with before, but I think when reading a sample script, a lot of times people's first sample scripts, or maybe their strongest ones, are often based on their own life experience. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And you often get amazing stories. But you want to make sure that that's not the only story they have to tell. And of course it's not. But those stories can really sparkle because this person has lived them and has lived with them for so long and kind of honed the story and really figured it out. And so for me, I mean, I love reading a highly original sample. I mean, some of my favorite things that I've written have been completely crazy, you know, scenarios that are not something that you could sell unless you were, you know, a very well-established writer who can, you know, color outside the lines. But as a sample, I think those can be really spectacular because they can stand out from the, you know, the same kind of stories you're reading over and over again. I really like that now people are writing more, you know, writing samples are usually original pilots now instead of, you know, your episode of Cold Case or Scorpion or whatever. So for me, the more original, the better. And just one that understands structure. And, you know, if you want to make it a bit non-traditional, if you want to jump around in time, you're taking on an added challenge in your sample. And so make sure that I can follow it, you know, and make sure that it's, no matter how sort of disconcerting you want it to feel at times, that you know the structure, you know, that you know kind of where you're going and how you're whipsawing people around in time. It needs to be, if you're going to take on that challenge, you need to know that you can wrangle it and sort of bring it home by the end.
So talking about writing pilots as samples, because I often tell writers that maybe they should just be writing a balls to walls kind of pilot, because statistically the odds of actually selling that pilot and, you know, having your show greenlit as a brand new writer, having never worked in television, is probably slim to none. And writing just a really amazing pilot that nobody would ever produce, but everybody will remember, might be a wiser approach. Do you think that, am I wrong, by the way, in the idea that it's very difficult for a new writer to actually sell a pilot and have it produced?
It's difficult for a very experienced writer to sell a pilot and have it produced. So yeah, it is very tough to be, I mean, everyone has great ideas. And if you're a writer, then you are developing the skills to get those ideas to the rest of the world. But you can never, I always say this to friends who are like, oh my God, I had the best meeting on the show. I know I got it. You don't know what that development person or that showrunner or that executive's giant puzzle looks like. You don't know what they need as a piece for the schedule they're putting together or their development slate. And so, yeah, for a brand new writer to be able to do it is really tough. And especially these days, original stuff has just the added challenge of, for at least the last 15 years, IP has been almost essential for, you know, a TV project to go to pilot or go to series, because I don't know if it's because, you know, I assume it's because marketing these are just 10 times easier. And if you have something that says Stephen King presents on top of your title, that just makes it easier. When we put the billboards up for Scream, the TV series, all you have to do is put kind of the hazy silhouette of that mask, and, you know, it's shorthanding it for the public. You know, people just glimpse these things on headers and things on their sites. And so if you have something that says a title that they recognize, they don't even have to look at it and kind of take it in and wonder. They're like, I know I saw Nurse Ratched somewhere, and I know she's from that movie. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. And it just makes everyone's job easier. It makes the corporate overlords happy. And I mean, I love an original story. I will always rather do an original story, but it doesn't help if you have, or it doesn't hurt if you have a recognizable title. Like for me, when I was developing Scream, I knew that there were just certain things I didn't have to worry about. We didn't have to go out and grow from bulb in the dirt this idea of what this show was. So that's a help and a hindrance, in that you have expectations from Scream that you've got to hit. And I had to work with Bob Weinstein and make him understand television. So yeah, unfortunately these days, the things that can help are not always going to lead you to better material, but they're going to lead you to, you get meetings quicker, you get, people can download what they already know about certain properties and things. And so they can meet you halfway with your pitch. You don't have to cut it from, you know, whole cloth.
You know, if memory serves me, and Ramesh, you might be able to correct me on this if I'm wrong, please do. That Nurse Ratched was written by a writer who did not have the rights to that.
No.
Just wrote it completely on spec,
right,
probably as a sample, I guess, and just thought, wow, this would sort of fulfill everything that Jill just mentioned.
Yeah.
And it's also ballsy.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the rights to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a chance worth taking, I think. You know, it's Rosencrantz, Guildenstern it, you know, find the different view on a classic story. Right. That's why people love, you know, modernizing Shakespeare stories, because everybody knows them and you don't have to get any rights. You don't have to call up Bill's descendants and get them to sign off.
Right. And it's becoming very popular in TV, right? Like there's a TV show called Pennyworth, I believe, which is about, it's the spin-off of Batman, and it's Alfred as like a young man. You know, it's like there's
the Dodger, which is the Artful Dodger.
There is Renfield,
right,
which is a feature film, right? I've read a script about Mina Harker. There was a script about the ship that Dracula took over. What's the name of that ship? That's what the script was called. And, I mean, people will find the most minute things in a story and blow it up. I don't know. I thought that was really clever. But I remember that people are going, oh, he can't write Nurse Ratched because he doesn't have the rights. And I was like, if it's a sample, who cares? It's a sample.
Right, and if you like it enough, let Amazon or Hulu or whoever the heck made it buy the rights.
Exactly right. Now, do you think that the streamers are changing the landscape at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the streamers and networks are really far apart. And I think the networks have stopped sort of taking as many chances on series that are sort of outside the sort of bread and potatoes of the multicam comedy. I don't think that world takes too many wild swings. And then the world of like the Law and Order franchises and the Chicago Fires and the things like that. Like, I think there are more and more of those filling the slots in TV, because it feels like TV has just said, the streamers are always going to outspend us. They're always going to outstar us in terms of talent that they're able to bring to TV. And so, we're going to give people what we know they like. They can turn on the TV at 8:00 on Thursday night and know that for the next 3 hours, they're going to get what they would expect from our network. And when I did Tommy for CBS, that was Edie Falco playing a gay woman who was chief of police of Los Angeles. And so she was, tackling a lot of very interesting new ground. And I think if we'd done that for a streamer, maybe it would have taken hold a little better. But I think for CBS, it was just didn't quite, I don't know. It was neither fish nor fowl. But I think it was worthwhile to keep trying to do things that for the networks. And then for the streamers, there's so much money and so much space that they're willing to fill. I always think of it as like throwing a lot of spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. You can take a lot more chances. They're able to get top talent for a ton of stuff. It's not just one marquee series that they're gonna, stand on. Although a marquee series doesn't hurt, Handmaid's Tale for Hulu and any of the series for HBO Max. So it's interesting to watch. I mean, the streamers put a lot of money into it. They're newer at it. They can have sort of, I think, the production values that are closer to a feature film. And I think that's how they've been able to sort of bridge the world of features and series, is that, now that so many movies are immediately available on TV, it kind of feels like the pandemic just sort of sped up a process that was coming down the line anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we all knew that it was going to happen, but we all thought that we would be able to control the timing, the pacing of it, and then the pandemic happened, and it really did accelerate everything. Ramesh, I know that our members
have some questions.
Ask questions. They are filling in the blanks for me. Like, yes, the name of the ship in Dracula is the Demeter, and the script that I was talking about was Braggy Shoots, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. That is correct. He's also a client of the agency where I'm employed, and so I should have known that. But I just have a lot of titles in my head. People are mentioning the Creed films as a character. A supporting character who then gets his own film, or in this case, a franchise. Yeah. So So can you just tell us a little bit about the new show? I know that you can't tell us too much, but just tell us whatever you can, how you got involved and
Sure.
and what it's about. And
Yeah. Well, Shining Veil, first of all, it's fabulous. It's
well,
great.
we already know that.
Shining Veil is what a few shows have tried to do, which is a horror comedy hybrid. And those have looked different, from every different creator who's done them. But essentially, Sharon Horgan and Jeff Astroff came up with the idea of a woman in her 50s who lives with her family in Brooklyn, and she has an affair and almost blows up the family, and they decide to move to a small town in Connecticut. And she's a writer, and she's trying to write her new book, and she's got a horrible writer's block, and there's mental illness in her family, and her kids don't get her, and her husband is a little, removed. They're having some issues, of course, with the infidelity. And so when she gets to this house, she starts to see things, see a ghost, and she doesn't know if the house is haunted or if she's undergoing menopausal schizophrenia, which, basically the symptoms are the same. So the fun of it is the idea of taking a woman in her 50s who's experiencing all these physical symptoms, as well as, a slump in her career and not being appreciated by her kids, and, having trouble connecting with her husband, and kind of playing the idea of, is it real or is it in your head? And so they had come up with that idea, and Jeff had written the pilot. And as he was getting ready to film the pilot, they got the order for season 1, and he realized for his next writer hire, he needed someone who knows horror, because he's a comedy ace. He's been doing it for years. And so I met with him and we talked about it, and I love the idea, and I feel like I kind of live the idea every day. So we connected. He says that he's the comedy dad and I'm the horror mom of this series. And then for season 1, we put together a writer's room that was really just him and me and a comedy writer. And we made 8 episodes, and it's a ton of fun. Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear together are just spectacular. Like, I've never been around people this kind of just charismatic and incredible professionals. And Mira Sorvino is brilliant and lovely. And we just got so many great supporting actors as well. We got Rob Morrow and Sherilyn Fenn, and just 2 wonderful young actors playing the kids. It's been a really fun experience. It's been a long time getting to this premiere that's coming up in a week. So I'm excited to see how it does. And then we've reconvened to start work on season 2. We haven't officially been ordered. They want to see how it does when it comes out, all that stuff. But the series is, I would say it's probably a bit more comedic than horror, because Jeff is a comedy writer, and he's great. And I feel like it's been a real trip for me to learn how to write comedy, as after all the years of doing what I've been doing, working in the hour-long format. And it's been a blast.
And so is this the 30-minute format?
It is. Mm-hmm.
It is? Okay, wow. And somebody is asking, Sarah Sprague is asking, are writers' rooms getting smaller now?
It just depends. Sometimes it depends on the budget. Sometimes it depends on what the showrunner is comfortable with, or I definitely think that in general, writers' rooms are getting smaller, and I'm concerned about that, because when I was starting, writers' rooms were always, like 9 to 10 to 12 people. And that allowed you to have every level of writer in there, like in the trenches, learning how to do this, from staff writer to story editor to co-producer to supervising to co-exec to your showrunner. And nowadays, a lot of times it's the showrunner finding a few trusted EPs or co-EPs and one or two, maybe entry-level people. But I've definitely noticed that the mid-level writing opportunities have just become pretty scarce. And
why is that, Jill?
I think a lot of it is because, there's different things that happen when a show is being developed. A lot of times they'll do the mini room where they just get some writers together and they're going to pay them, the Writers Guild minimum and work out a deal for when the show is picked up, you'll get your fee. And so, people will take that if they need the job, but it's not the ideal situation. The other thing is, I think because a lot of places are going for quantity, not quantity over quality, but just pure quantity, that they're just hedging their bets a lot more. And so they're spreading the money for writing budgets. They're just much smaller. And so a showrunner knows that I can't take the chance on if somebody doesn't work out as a writer, I let them go, or we pick up the slack. It's like, if I know I have to do this many episodes and we're going to start production 6 weeks after we assemble the writer's room, or, whatever the time frame is, it's going to be, I'm going to hire someone I know, and that person is expensive. So there's less money to spend on perhaps the lower to mid-level writers who you'll be spending kind of as much time training as you are getting the benefit of their writing skills. Wow. So that might mean, like I said, and then, a lot of programs, at least used to be, like the writers programs through the studios or through the networks would help kind of subsidize the salaries of the entry-level writers that you would take on to your shows. And that's not, I don't think that's happening as much either. So it's less money to spend, and the need for to have sort of a known quantity. So I don't. I think it's a lot harder to break in, and I think it's shows aren't taking the time to build writers the way we used to.
Interesting, really interesting. Mr. Ramesh, are there any group questions?
Yeah, there are a couple here about, especially asking, is it, this has come up a lot actually on the page too, about new writers who writing their original pilots. A, should they do a pilot and a Bible as a writing sample? And also B, should they write more than just the pilot? Like there are some who say, write the whole season if you have, for new writers.
That's not necessary. It's good to know a lot of the content of the Bible, but that's more if you are in a position to try and sell it as a series to be produced. If you're writing it as a sample, you want to know who your characters are, where they've come from, and where they're going. But as a showrunner who's reading that sample script, I don't need that information because we don't have time to read it. There's going to be a stack of scripts to read. And so we don't want a Bible to come in with that. Now, if you're in a position where you have a property or you have a star attached, or you're able to go directly into a place with your original pilot, then they might say in the meeting, where is this story going to go? But they don't earn the right to see your Bible until they're really coming to the table and kind of seriously interested in buying it or developing it. And so don't put the work, put the work in to know the information, but you don't have to put it all down in a written format and give it to any showrunner or executive. That's my opinion.
Is there any use in writing more than the pilot?
Not for getting a job, not to use it as a writing sample, because we don't have time to read more than we read. And a lot of times if you have a lot of writers you're reading, I mean, I don't want to say that people might just read the first 20 minutes. I'm always going to read the whole thing, but I've only ran a show once. But I've definitely done a lot of reading to help, hire people or to make decisions. And if you're writing a sample for a show, just write a solid, whatever it is, 52-page pilot. And that's all you need to do. I mean, you want to leave people wanting more. You want them to say, I've got to bring this writer in and meet this person so I can hear what happens next. So to me, the mandate was usually don't leave any pages on the table when you leave the meeting. It's like, let them want to get in touch with you again. Let them want to, find out more.
That's the WGA mantra. They're like, never leave anything behind.
But it helps. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with reading samples. It's like you want it to be so good that they want to meet you, and whether or not they want to talk about your pilot, it's like if you're just getting in the door so you can talk about their pilot that is turning into a series, all the better.
And if let's say that a network is interested in your pilot, aren't they going to maybe have a little bit of their own ideas as to sort of maybe where it should go? Or do they completely stay out of that process?
They usually don't have an idea of where it will go. They can give you notes and feedback on things that you pitch, but if it's your original story, they want to hear. Yeah, they want you to tell them, enough of the sort of big beats along the way that they can tell, oh my gosh, yeah, that's going to bring people, coming back, or that's going to be a great, event episode, or that's going to be a great water cooler moment. They just want to hear enough from you to know that you've got a good enough vision, and you don't have to have everything figured out. That's why they need to pay for you to have a writer's room to figure it all out. But if you have, I call my production company is called Signpost Up Ahead. If you have enough of the signposts of your story laid out ahead of you, then you can, get enough people interested to help you fund the journey.
Right. And so for these writers, and there are some, because we meet them on the group page sometimes, where they're like, I've written all 22 episodes.
Right.
It's like, it's like if you've committed all that time, 5 years, let's say, part-time to write 22 episodes, and yet that's not the direction where the network wants to go. If you've only written the pilot, isn't it a lot easier for the network to say, well, maybe we could do it like this rather than like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do want them to feel like they're contributing if they want to be. And certainly it's their money, it's their outlet to get it to the world. We are not writing novels. We don't have final say on everything that we do. And when we write the pilot, that's the last time you have final say on anything again. And, like when I was doing Scream for MTV, that had a lot of cooks in the creative kitchen because Bob Weinstein was very attached to the Scream title and property. And so he had very strong ideas about what should happen. MTV had their input on what they knew their audience would connect with. And so, every property is different. I remember years ago, I had lunch with Frank Darabont right after he'd done Shawshank Redemption. And we were talking. And he said, Jill, write all your original stuff now, because once you become successful, you'll never be writing just for yourself again, because they'll offer you so much money for rewrites, and touch-ups and punch-ups and, projects based on their libraries or whatever. And it's true. It's like, embrace the time you have to write completely original stories, because yes, you will have less time later. And also, people will tell you what to write later when you can, charge a lot more.
Yeah, it's ultimately most writers make a living writing assignments.
Yeah.
The days of sort of writing specs and making a living as a spec writer is probably over. There might be a couple of writers who can do it.
I mean, I sold an original pilot recently to a company that I was talking to about a couple of books to be adapted. And then those books either weren't available or whatever. And they're like, well, what else are you thinking about? And I pitched them an original one, and they're paying me to write it. And it's like, I was just flabbergasted. I'm like, that is so rare that you get to do that.
But yet you've earned that.
Yeah,
right?
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, and then I'm working on 2 other things that were properties that people approached me with. So yeah, it's a world where you're developing your skills, doing your stuff, and then you're flexing your skills, hopefully for the rest of your long and varied career. Hopefully writing some of your passion projects, but it's a job too,
It is a job. That's what's always so interesting, right? Because there's this dream, and then often the dream vanishes overnight, right? Because, it's like if you sell a script or you get a job, like anything, now all of a sudden you're thrown into it and you're the professional. And then it's not a dream anymore. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like I got a lot of stuff I need to do.
Yeah.
And then it becomes work. It becomes work.
Yeah. I mean, getting your show sold and set up is quickly becomes 0.1% of the amount of work it's going to take. What's fun about being a writer producer for TV is we are on set for production, and we're kind of not just welcomed on set, but it's
you're the boss in a sense.
Yeah. And still the director is in charge of the set when it's happening, but you're still the brain trust. You carry the narrative continuity, you carry the narrative, you're the one who can answer every possible question. And so it's really satisfying to be on set and to be to know that whether or not you know the answer immediately, you can extrapolate it from all the time you spent in the room, from all the feedback you've heard from the actors who have thoughts on their characters, from the network who have thoughts on what they think is fun. Network not so much, but but yeah, it's a really great world that I know a lot of feature writers that I've spoken to have just, if they have been on set, they often do not feel like they're terribly welcome or consulted.
Yeah, if they're welcome at all. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. So we don't have Jill for much longer. So Mr. Ramesh, why don't maybe you pick out a couple of...
Yeah, someone asked, what are some of the common issues you find when you read scripts by new writers or entry-level writers? What are some of the common issues you come across when you read their work?
I suppose sometimes it's hard because what I'm looking for might be different than what a studio or network who's also going to be reading them at the same time is looking for. It's like I don't ever want to hear a character talk about their past or what led them to where they are. I want to be able to, glean it from what they do, because I'm an Ordinary People fan, maybe more of what they don't say or what they hold back on saying. You want it to be structured, but not slavishly sticking to by page, this happens. You do need to make sure, like, your first 10 pages, your first 20 pages, make this story unputdownable. I always joke that my first 10 pages were always the most spit polished pages in the world, because every time you open the script, you're back at page 1, and you can, like, if you don't want to deal with the problems of Act 2 or Act 3, you just sit there and polish that damn first act until it shines. But your ending has to fulfill the promise of the premise as well. I mean, I do like, for a pilot, a good cliffhanger at the end, but a story that has given me enough information where I can sort of, you want people to kind of stay awake at night thinking about your script. You want the story to be different enough that it just, you really have to stand apart from a crowd when you're in that stack of scripts. And so it's kind of a safe place to take a big swing. And I don't mean like what a network show might do, like starting with a giant sinkhole on La Brea, and then where do we go from there? Like, right. Those are things where, okay, if they have an idea for the series and they can figure it out or whatever, but it's like all too often, I think some network shows that are trying to be, to set themselves apart will start with some crazy thing that happens to grab your attention. And then they're like, oh crap, we got to do 22 episodes of this. And so I'm probably not helping with this, but let your characters do something really different. I will forever remember a script I read about a woman who designed refrigerators. And it was an interesting story and it was very character based. And I was just like, who the hell designs refrigerators? And then when you hear about what she does or what she sketches or what she thinks about or what she talks about at her office meeting, that's not what the story was about, but it makes you stop and go, oh yeah, somebody does that. Yeah. And then, just something like that, like a novel I read, and I'm completely blanking, but I think it was David Benioff wrote it. It was a World War II story, and it was about a character who was arrested for stealing food, and they were going to be killed. But then the commander of the town said to them, my daughter's getting married next week, and we need 12 eggs to make her cake. I will let you live if you can bring me 12 eggs. And that character went off and had, this insane adventure. And by the time he got back, ruined, torn, everything, but with those 12 eggs. And then the guy's like, oh, we got some eggs. We already made the cake. It's fine. And you're just like, what? No.
But did he live?
He did, yeah.
Okay, good, yeah. I'd like to see that movie.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'm sure it's in development.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
But, just a story like that where you're just like, and now whenever I pull 12 eggs out of the refrigerator, I just look at it and I go, it's so easy for me to get 12 eggs, just the things that stick in your head that you can't get them out. And if I'm reading, 10 scripts about an Italian mob family and I'm like, this person didn't live in an Italian mob family. They just like The Godfather, it's
right.
It's like, write something that, shines like a light.
I hear a lot about the writer's voice and that we're looking for the writer's voice. And I think a lot of writers think, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but they think that the voice is sort of the way they write the script, like kind of that Shane Black kind of language. And to me, that's not voice because you don't see that on the screen. To me, a writer's voice has to be seen and heard on the screen. And to me, that is the choices that the character makes. And so the idea of a character that designs refrigerators, that's part of the writer's voice because it's those things that you remember. So for me personally, that when I'm looking at scripts and people talk about voice, for me, that's my definition of voice, of those unique choices that the writer makes that are often explored through the choices that the character makes in pursuit of finding those 12 eggs and, getting them to where they need to go. So I think that's great advice, actually. And so I think that you answered that question quite well.
Oh, thanks.
Actually. All right.
One quick
last
question.
Okay, forget it. We can never get one last question.
I'm fine.
Okay. Because there's always one last question, and he's got one, I got one. Okay, go.
How did you get into horror? What was it that drew you to the genre, and how how did you get into that? And what is it about the genre that you enjoy so much?
For me, I love horror because one, I grew up reading Stephen King and watching The Twilight Zone and watching horror movies. And to me, I always feel like, I always say horror is drama with actual life or death stakes. It's not someone dying of cancer. It's someone who, if they don't make the right decision, could get murdered very quickly. And the thing that I kind of, the idea I used to sell Scream was this show, to do a horror movie for TV, you've got to find a way to stretch it out, but make it still compelling, hour to hour. And so I said, it has to be Friday Night Lights, where this character you love could die at any minute. And so it was always about, you're doing teen drama, but you're doing, real people and trying to make the best teen drama you can, but there's blood, looming on the horizon. And so I always want to treat horror with respect. I always start with the characters and the situation. I'm never going to do just sort of Texas Chainsaw, like just blood and gore and people getting limbs chopped off. And I mean, I think psychological horror is the best way to start. Like one of my favorite horror movies of recent years was The Babadook, because I feel like it's one of the most compelling mother-son relationships I have ever seen. And it happens to be a horror movie. And
you like mother-son relationships because it goes back to ordinary people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just this idea of a child wanting to protect his mother from something only he can see, and no one realizing that his behavior is out of love, and it's not just a kid on the spectrum acting out. I mean, I think I've always loved preconceptions about illnesses, mental illness, how that can be seen as demonic possession, or kind of that overlap of those worlds. And so Shining Vale is perfect for me. But for me, horror has always just been about the characters. I've always felt that Stephen King has done that with his stories. He will start out with a family, usually, and he will take that family through some horrible times, and or a 12-year-old boy. But he always makes me care about them. It's like there's so many Stephen King stories that I cried while reading, and I'm like, okay, so horror isn't just some write-off. It's a very real, very legit genre, and I think its enduring appeal is a testament to how good it can be. And I watched a movie called Relic recently.
It's terrific film, the Australian film.
Oh, worth seeing. Yeah, it is about aging parents, right, and the pain you feel when your parent starts fading or disappearing or losing their intellect and their memories. And then they found this wonderful horror way to illustrate that. And people are still talking, like my husband and I and all the people at my work who I told to watch it, we're still talking about what the ending means.
Oh, the ending broke me.
It's amazing. And so I highly recommend it. But yeah, I didn't even hear about it. I mean, I stumbled across this movie and I'm like, how is a movie this good going under the radar? So.
But I think that those are really good points. That's why I love Carrie so much.
Yeah.
Right. Because, what a great character. And if you really stop to think about it, obviously not Stephen King's intention, but you can look at that today and think that it's still amazingly relevant when we have school shootings. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of
and the power of bullying. Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
The bullying is in person, but now it's online. Yeah, it's very relevant. Yeah.
It's still really, really relevant. All right. So here's two quick questions. What was it like growing up loving the Twilight Zone and then getting to write for the Twilight Zone? That's a geeky question, but I want to ask it. It's a geeky question.
Oh, actually, this brings up something I wanted to mention earlier, which is a sample that I wrote. I basically wrote a Twilight Zone sample very early in my career. And you didn't look at it and go, oh, that's a Twilight Zone, but it was a 30-page little suspense drama story about a creepy bus that this woman keeps seeing. And she thinks it's like a bus that's trying to take her to hell or something, and it's just, it came to me because I was walking through Santa Monica, walking my dog one night, and I kept seeing this creepy bus. And it was like, okay, I'm going to write this story and so that became a sample that my agent sent out as just like a wonderful little psychological story. And it got me a ton of work. For one thing, it was a very quick read. And so a lot of times executives, maybe they'll pick up a 60-page thing, but they'll pick up a 26-page thing and be like, oh, okay, I can do this, on the bus or whatever. Not that they ride the bus. But so it was
lunch, maybe.
It was so it was a script that worked really well for me. And then when they rebooted, UPN rebooted the Twilight Zone in like 2002, the showrunners read it like, okay, first of all, why does this woman have a Twilight Zone sample? And 2, is she 90 years old? And I went in to meet with them and I'm like, no, it was just a story that came to me. And so if you've got a story that doesn't feel like a full pilot or a feature script, write it in the format that fits, that works for you, because there's so many, you've got podcasts, you've got anthology shows, you've got, you had Quibbly where you could, write something in a 6-minute format. Write it however it feels right for you. And I don't know, maybe you'll get, pushback on it or something. But when people were given this to read from me, I got more meetings. And it's maybe even a bigger challenge. You're establishing a world in 3 or 4 pages. You're taking people through the ringer and resolving it. So yeah, the Twilight Zone was a dream to write for. It was great. And I every time they reboot the Twilight Zone, I keep hoping it'll get better. And I just don't think it is. And I hope we keep trying.
And what are you watching? So do you watch TV at all?
Yeah. My husband and I, we just finished watching Station 11, which we really enjoyed. Oh gosh, I don't know. I need to have the list of what's happening in front of me. I enjoyed The Handmaid's Tale. I started watching a few that I didn't finish, but really enjoyed. Flight Attendant. What's the Stephen King one that Jason Bateman did? The Other.
Yes, I just watched it too.
I know it. I can't remember.
Yes,
it's
really good.
Yeah, that was really good. I don't know, Chris. What's on TV right now? Help me out here.
I don't know. I don't watch anything. I just started watching some Korean zombie thing with my son that's on Netflix.
Oh, All of Us Are Dead Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm really bad. I don't have any time to watch TV. But you know something? I'm watching Shining Vale.
Yes.
I'm watching
everybody
Shining
check it
Vale
out.
1 week from tonight. And it's on Stars, is that correct?
Right.
It's on Stars. Yeah.
Okay,
So
good.
if you don't have Stars currently, download the Stars app and let Shining Vale be the first thing you watch, because that'll really help our show.
I think that's a great idea. And I think they have some kind of partnership with Amazon. So if you're an Amazon Prime member,
I think with Amazon or with Hulu.
And Roku too, they have, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So any of these, or even just Google Shining Vale and look at all the ways to watch it and check it out.
How many episodes in the first season?
It's 8 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, do you watch Servant on Apple TV?
Oh, I do watch Servant, yes. And it's kind of a guilty pleasure because I don't feel like it's going anywhere, but I kind of like it for the food porn. The male lead is a chef, and every episode there's just some amazing part of the story that intersects with this gorgeous food that he makes. But I do really like Lauren Ambrose and Rupert Grint and everybody on it. Is just it's one of the most compelling stories where I just have no idea what's going on after watching 3 seasons. But I'm still drawn to it.
Wow. That's a compliment. 3 seasons and still watching, even though you don't know what's happening.
I know.
Somebody shouting out The Outsider. Could that be the name
Yeah,
of the Jason show?
yeah,
Okay.
that's the one.
All right,
Yeah.
well, there we go.
It's
All
good,
right, well,
actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll put it on my long list. But Shining Veil's at the top. I know everybody, the Inside Pitch, we're all going to tune in to give you the thanks that you deserve for taking your time out today to meet with all of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jill. Good luck with the show. It's so nice to see you again. And
good to see you guys too.
Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Ramesh and I will be around again soon. All right, we're out.
Take care.
Bye.